Alright guys, let's get started. First of all, just a quick show of hands. How many of you own Bitcoin? Oh, that's pretty good. Nice, nice. How many of you have seen a Bitcoin transaction or done a Bitcoin transaction? Okay, interesting. Yeah, that's good. It's the whole buy and hold mentality, you know? Of the 3 people that actually had Bitcoin, nobody actually did a transaction. So it's okay. After the talk is over, I'll go to each one of you who doesn't yet have a Bitcoin wallet. I'll give you some Bitcoin, not a whole one. And then, because Bitcoin is something that's to be experienced, you know, I can talk about it all day, but to really understand what a powerful concept it is, you gotta understand it to see the instant transaction on your phone on a Sunday night, or normally bankers are drowning their misery at a pub. So, I saw a couple of weeks ago, we started seeing a big spike in the Bitcoin price. And the Bitcoin community went absolutely nuts. And I got really pissed off. I don't get pissed off at newcomers who are excited about price, because they don't know any better. They just got into space, they didn't really look at Bitcoin and its implications, all that. But those of you that bought in 2016, 2015, 14, 13, and you start getting excited when Bitcoin hits all-time highs, I have a little problem with that, because those guys should really know better. In fact, I even made a Bitcoin video called, I don't give a shit about Bitcoin's price. And it was kind of my little moment of angst, because when you get into Bitcoin, you are lured in by greed, and you're sold a revolution. But to understand this point, I will quickly go over what Bitcoin is. And we're going to start with protocols. Now, you might have heard that Bitcoin is a protocol. But what the heck is a protocol? If somebody says to a normal civilian, if you tell them Bitcoin is a protocol, they just freeze up because it sounds like some sort of crazy computer science nerd thing. But as it turns out, we undergo protocols all the time. In fact, human protocols are infinitely more complex than computer ones. A computer is a really dumb machine. Once you learn how to talk computer, you realize that when you type in information to make a computer do something, it has to be stupidly simple. You cannot imply anything with a computer. For example, if you want a computer to do 1 + 1 = 2, you have to say 1 + 1 = get me 2. And if you imply anything, the computer will give you an error, your code will be buggy, and you will realize just how stupid a computer is as you get frustrated and shake the damn thing. So Bitcoin is a dumb protocol, but in order to understand it, let's look at a very complex protocol, language. I am communicating to you guys using the English language protocol. When I write, I'm using the English written language protocol. There is a certain syntax, or a certain grammar I must use in order to make sense. So I need to follow a specific set of rules. A protocol is just a set of rules and regulations. Hi, come in, man.
Sorry.
No problem, dude. Have a seat. I hope there's a seat right there.
Okay.
Oh, and if the camera goes bleep, 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 just let me know.
Okay.
And I'll check if it isn't like, it hasn't exploded or anything.
Alright, I got that.
I was just saying that, just to catch you up on speed, I was talking about Bitcoin in general, and first I'll explain protocols. A protocol is just a set of rules and standards and procedures to how to accomplish a task. When I do a language protocol, I am following a set of rules in order to communicate with other humans. And language protocols are incredibly complex. I was just in Egypt. I stayed there for 6 months. I was visiting my family. And I saw a very interesting phenomenon called English-Arabic chat speak. What Arabs who live in the English will tend to do is they will actually start to write in English using English keyboards, English symbols, but they will write in Arabic. So suddenly you have numbers that represent certain words, certain sounds that do not exist in English. And you see 2 protocols, the English and Arabic protocol, merged together. Language, human protocols are really beautiful and organic. Bitcoin, not so much. In fact, with Bitcoin, there's a certain set of rules that if you violate them, you're not speaking Bitcoin anymore. And that's what's known as a fork. You might have heard of Bitcoin Cash, right? Basically, the people of Bitcoin Cash don't speak Bitcoin anymore because they changed a couple of rules. Imagine if, to understand the English language, every single word someone says to you has to be pronounced in a certain way. And if they just say one word wrong, the whole sentence doesn't make any sense, and it's as if they were speaking Russian. This is basically Bitcoin. It's a protocol, it's a certain way of doing things. Now, languages have dialects. You know, if you guys go up north, you certainly will experience a different dialect. It can be almost as if it's a different language, but they have a certain syntax and grammar that still follows English, so we can communicate. Maybe we need a few beers, but we will understand them. Just like in the language, there's dialects. In Bitcoin, we have dialects, but they're known as implementations. They speak Bitcoin. Different implementations can transact with each other, but they're different in certain ways. So we see that Bitcoin is almost like a language, a way for computers to speak to each other and do a certain thing. What this thing is sending transactions. All that Bitcoin is designed for is for participants in the Bitcoin network to send transactions among each other. But how is this accomplished? So we have computers, and they speak the same language, but over what network do they communicate these transactions? The Bitcoin network closely resembles that of the internet. It runs on TCP, actually. If TCP sounds familiar, that is the same type of protocol that the internet uses to propagate information. The whole point, as a result, Bitcoin is an ad hoc network. If we are participants in the Bitcoin network, we're all Bitcoin computers, I don't follow a hierarchy. I don't communicate with you, then you, then you, then you, then you. I just try to connect with as many people as I can in an arbitrary manner. Ad hoc in Latin means arbitrary. Random, very important. Also, to propagate information, Bitcoin follows a gossip protocol known as flooding. All that it means is that I'm just trying to spread information as much as I can. I'm not trying to ration it, I'm not trying to be efficient, I just want to spread it among all these participants. So, Bitcoin, ad hoc network following the flooding protocol. And this has some very powerful implications in regards to the spreading of information in Bitcoin. Bitcoin is an egalitarian network as a result. I do not, as a Bitcoin participant, I am not enforced to follow a hierarchy. There is no gatekeepers of information. And this is ironically what a lot of mainstream investors, bankers, and industry makers say is the problem. What the heck are you guys doing? This network is inefficient. It would be so much more efficient to have point A to point B to point C to point D. In fact, it is more efficient. They are correct. What they're missing the point is efficiency is not our priority in Bitcoin. Our priority right now is to make sure the system stays decentralized and egalitarian. If you were Goldman Sachs, and if you were a homeless person who just downloaded Bitcoin software, none of you have priority who gets the information first. This is in direct contrast with the current hierarchical system of centralized information propagation, economic transactions, and so forth. So now we're starting to understand the point of Bitcoin. We're starting to see the network is egalitarian. But first I want to dispel a few myths of Bitcoin. See, Bitcoin was created by engineers. Engineers, fantastic, amazing at creating stuff. And then these same engineers got in charge of design. Bitcoin. Let's look at this term. Bitcoin, coin. One of the most concrete, tangible forms of money applied to the most decentralized, abstract currency we've ever had. You see what the problem is? Wallet. But it's not actually a wallet, okay? So, okay, fine, there's no such thing as Bitcoin. But what about a wallet? There's an address, there's a balance. Well, these things are actually not technically true. What you own is a keychain, and you own keys. Because you don't own a Bitcoin. You have a key that proves that in this network, there's a piece of data of a certain amount of Bitcoin, and you have a key that will unlock it. When somebody sends you an input, so I send you Bitcoin, I'm going to send you guys Bitcoin, I'm sending you from my private key to you. You're going to have a public key, which is what creates your address, and you're going to lock that input. And then, if you want to spend it, you also have a private key hidden in the software, which comes out, unlocks it, and then you can send it. This is very different than what you expect, right? You think that when you think of Bitcoin, when you think of a balance, you think of actual coins somehow in your wallet, but it's not true. So we're seeing a problem of what happens when engineers design Bitcoin. And the problem is the expectations are unrealistic, and they really, really hinder the learning process of Bitcoin. So from now on, when someone says wallet, I want you to think keychain. And when someone says Bitcoin, I want you to think private keys that can unlock information. Cryptography. Now we're starting to get to the essence of what makes Bitcoin possible. I will refrain from going into hashing algorithms, data signature pointers, and all this complicated stuff. But all we need to know is these transactions are taken by special members of the network known as miners. These miners shove these transactions in block of data. It's just a block of data. We've had this for decades. But they sign it using cryptographic means, meaning we have a signature. And this signature proves that the block is valid. They're not doing this out of kindness of their heart. Bitcoin assumes if we are all Bitcoin participants, we're all trying to collude in one way or another to break the network. using technical terms, we can say that Bitcoin relies on a game theoretical set of security. People will try to screw over the network, but we have incentives set in place so that this is not profitable. In fact, it is against, for example, you might have heard that miners were trying to attack the network. You might have heard what happens if miners take 51% control of the hashing rate. What happens if miners want to create Bitcoin and decide to attack the network? Well, it turns out it is not in their interest to do so. In fact, if they were to break Bitcoin, they would kill the proverbial goose, the lazy golden eggs. So even if, the crazy thing about Bitcoin is that a lot of these miners wish they could take over the network. Yet, right now, they're mining valid transactions, they're doing what the network wants them to, because they have to. And so we went over the network, we went over the protocol, and we can do all this technical conversation, and it's great, and game theoretical security this, cryptography that, decentralized network, but what the hell does it all mean? Why is this important? Well, let's take a quick look at Bitcoin's history. Let's get to the real fun stuff. In 1992, prominent members of the growing internet computing industry got together and said, guys, you see what's coming, right? We're creating this. And we have the internet coming up in computers, and they're going to become mainstream. That's obvious. But cryptography is being completely neglected. The internet is insecure. Governments are totally going to use the internet to spy on their citizens, to control and mass surveillance. Of course, everybody laughed at them. They called them crazy. They called them crazy anarchists. So they said, okay, fine, we will never get society as a whole to agree, but we're going to get together and use our knowledge to use cryptography to secure people's informations. One of their key goals was to create a currency that was decentralized and not be controlled by a central entity. In order for this to occur, however, two conditions have to be done.